Flash on. Alright, so today I want to talk about how I'm about 99% sure Scotty Kilmer was wrong on his, what I say is a complete misdiagnosis of a timing chain issue on the 1.4 liter turbo Chevy Cruze Sonic engines. It's also on the Chevy Trax and Buick Encore, I believe. And before I get more into it, I just want to say I don't hate Scotty Kilmer in any way or anything like that. It's just, and a lot of times some of his videos are very helpful and informative, but I mean, nobody's perfect, and it's kind of hard to know everything about every single car out there when you work on so many different vehicles. So sometimes people make mistakes. So my Chevy Cruze happens to have roughly the same mileage, 90,000 miles. His video was from a whole month ago. I meant to do this video a long time ago, but I couldn't find my old evap Purge solenoid to do the video to make the noise. See, right now, this engine is making the same noise that he had in his video. See if you hear it. Let me put the camera a little closer so you can hear it better. All right. Let's get up in here. Right here, this guy is the evap Purge solenoid. Making a whole bunch of clicking noise after the engine coolant temperature gets above 176 degrees. It starts doing that on the old one. All right, so let me go turn off the car, and I'll switch it out with a new one. And when I switch it out with a new one, you'll hear how much quieter it is. Not only that, I'll explain, there's another thing that could also be causing the noise, but this is the first most likely thing, the first thing to check, the least expensive. It's only about 20 bucks for one of these, or one of these guys. This is a new one. I believe I got it on rockauto.com. I forgot which brand I got. I'm not sure if I went with oh, this is Bosch. There we go. It's a Bosch brand. So you may not be able to see me too well. I might not have the camera zoomed in far enough, but this is really easy to switch out. It just takes a few minutes. So it just unplugs here on the intake manifold. There's a red clip here that unlocks. So you just pull that off. I mean, if you need to see a better video of this, like more detailed and zoomed in, you could watch another video online. I mean, that's not really the point of this video. This slips off of here. Come on, get off of there. All right, that red tab is off now. There's a wiring harness. You gotta lift up on the tab and pull it out. All right, so see how fast it comes out? This is so easy to switch out. And it's a very common, very overlooked problem on the Chevy Cruze. There's a lot of mechanics out there that'll hear that noise and they'll want to tell you $1,000 to do the timing chain. A lot of times it's just this Purge solenoid. They go bad at probably 70, 80,000 miles, maybe sometimes a little bit more. This one went bad a little while ago. I had already switched it out. Like I said, it's at 90,000 miles now. The wiring harness back on. The vacuum hose back on. Gotta clip this red clip back in here. Alright, so that's like the number one most likely thing that makes that loud, like ticking, plastic rattling noise. The timing chain usually doesn't even sound quite like that. Timing chain usually makes more like a metal noise. This is more of a plastic sound. So being able to identify different sounds really helps. But so here's another thing that can also happen. But I would say this would happen more so if you have more mileage on your Cruze or Sonic. There's this plastic guide that's right along the timing chain here under this valve cover. And for some reason, I guess it's a poor design by GM. There's a lot of poor designs by GM. But in this case, those two bolts that hold that plastic guide on, they work themselves loose over time. And what you got to do is take them out, put some thread locker on them, torque them back down to spec, good to go if you get some noise in here. All right. But here's the thing, you know, Scotty Kilmer, he didn't even take off the valve cover and look at the timing chain. I can understand not spending hundreds of dollars taking apart everything to look at the timing chain through the cover, you know, with all the pulleys and stuff off. But he could have taken off the valve cover and looked at the timing chain to see if anything was unusual. He didn't even do that. Okay? I mean, all he did was look at the trouble codes and say, oh, it's a bad timing chain. But guess what? There's a lot of things that can cause those trouble codes. A bad evap purge solenoid can actually cause a knock sensor code that he saw. And if that plastic guide is loose and the timing chain's moving around, that can cause the code too. I mean, there's a lot of things that can cause a knock code if the engine's not running properly, or if there's vibrations. You know, even if the engine's running okay, but there's a lot of vibration, believe it or not, a knock sensor could pick up on those vibrations, because that's what it's meant to do. I think a knock sensor is usually like a, you know, it just moves around, and if it feels those vibrations moving around, it'll set it off. So there's a lot of things that could cause that knock sensor code, not just a stretched or bad timing chain. But he did not properly check it out, which I was really surprised, because a lot of times, a lot of his videos, he usually does a proper diagnosis. So I was really surprised. What else? So there was also the code of the underboost in his video. Now, I'll go over a couple of things that can cause that underboost code. So, the number one most common thing, the first thing with a Chevy Cruze, if you're between 60 and 100,000 miles, clogged up catalytic converters. When those catalytic converters get clogged up, and they get clogged up very early on this car compared to other cars, low miles compared to other cars that I've seen. When they get clogged up, your engine can't breathe, your turbo can't spool up all the way, it can't boost up all the way. Therefore, it gives you an underboost code. You'll also notice in his video, when he test drives the car, you'll notice that he complains about kind of like a acceleration lag or throttle lag, turbo lag, and kind of sluggish accelerating. Well, if your catalytic converters are clogged up, it'll do exactly that. Okay, so that's number one. Number two thing is, let me get my little box here. Oh, here it is. Here's my old one. Whoops, dropped that. Okay, so this is right here in the turbo, the wastegate actuator, that's what it's called. Mine, I think, actually could have gone a lot longer. I did things in reverse order. I actually replaced this first before realizing, hey, my catalytic converters are clogged up. So this, when it gets really old, you can see it's really rusty. But when the vehicle gets more mileage, 100 and something thousand miles, it'll get even rustier than that. And it'll start having trouble. See, this one still opens pretty good. But when they get older, they'll have trouble where they'll stay stuck closed, or they could stay stuck open. They'll have trouble moving back and forth. And it actually did make a difference, though, replacing it before it was completely failed, because the car does accelerate smoother since I replaced that with less surging. Now here's another thing that can cause underboost code, and usually this would only be on Cruzes with a lot of miles, and not only a lot of miles, but also if you have this this oil feed line, if you have it clog up because you don't change your oil often enough, is one thing that can happen. And another thing that can happen is if you'd never replace it, if you have one of the first few years of the Cruzes they had this single O-ring here, and there was also no heat shield. But more importantly, if you never replaced it around, I don't know, 100,000 miles, they would leak. And if you didn't know about it, your turbo could starve of oil, and then it burns up. So, I mean, turbo failure is most likely to happen on a higher mileage Cruze, but it also depends on this right here. So even if you have a lot of miles on your Cruze, but you replace this with the new updated version, which has 2 O-rings now and a heat shield, or you have a newer Cruze, which already has a better version of this. See, this is 2012, 2011, 2012. I'm not sure at what year they changed it, but if you have a newer Cruze, then you might not have to worry about this. So those are 3 things right there that can cause that underboost code. The worst of them is if your turbo actually fails. But in the case of that video, you can tell that the turbo was still working. If it was a failed turbo, that car would have really been struggling to do anything at all. So most likely it was just a clogged catalytic converter. That's very, very common in the Cruze. And most likely it was just a bad evap purge solenoid. I mean, you can get universal catalytic converters like $100 a piece. Go to a muffler shop, have them put them on. You get that evap purge solenoid for $20. So the whole car could have been fixed for a couple $100. But I feel really sad for that customer, Scotty Kilmer, because there's no telling. She may have gone, sorry, there was a fly. She may have gone somewhere and got that $1,000 timing job done, or she may have traded or sold the car when it still had a lot of life left in it. There's people online that have these Chevy Cruzes that go 200,000 miles and never replace the timing chain or the automatic transmission. There's people with the manual stick shifts go 400,000 miles with an original Cruze engine and never replace the timing chain. That tells me the timing chains don't fail in these engines. I've never heard of one. Now, if you actually know of a timing chain that has failed and you have proof, you have a broken timing chain or a stretched one, go ahead, feel free to tell me about it in the comments. Let me know about it. But if you tell me, oh, my mechanic said the timing chain was bad and he replaced it and I spent $1,000, well, that doesn't tell me much of anything, because for all you know, your mechanic just got a bunch of money off of you because he's greedy, or he just doesn't know what he's doing. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of mechanics that are greedy and just want to get a bunch of money off of you. And there are actually some out there that just don't know what they're doing. And sometimes they just make mistakes because they work on too many different cars. That's why I feel like mechanics should really specialize in just specific, like, I only work on Japanese cars, or I only work on European cars, or I only work on American cars. I mean, if you live in a big city, you might be able to do an even smaller specialty focus. Maybe you only do Ford vehicles, or you only do Hondas, and that way you make a lot less mistakes. So, I mean, I don't hate Scotty Kilmer or anything, like I said. It's just he made a mistake. I'm 99% sure of that. And it would be great if he actually sees this video and calls with that customer and is like, hey, you still have the Cruze? I think I found your problem. Let's check out a couple other things. He really should have diagnosed it further. He really should have checked some more things. But he just hates Chevy so much. I mean, I do too. I love Toyota, don't get me wrong, but he hates GM so much that he's so quick to just jump to conclusions. Oh, it's a piece of crap. You got to get rid of it. Well, this is a piece of crap too, but you know what? It's already paid off, and if I sell it, I'm losing money. So I'm better off to just keep it going for as long as I can. I hate Chevy too, but I'm not going to waste a bunch of money unnecessarily. So that's why it's important to know these things. All right, so let me go ahead and start it back up now, and you should notice that it's a lot quieter. It's not making the same noise it was before. The only thing you might hear is you might hear a little bit of noise from the fuel injectors here, but it won't be as loud as it was before. All right, so we go start the engine back up. There we go. That evap purge solenoid isn't making that classic rattling noise anymore. Sounds a lot better right now. Another thing you should know is that on the Chevy Cruze, that evap purge solenoid can actually go bad without even a check engine light. And you'll know when it makes that noise after the engine's warmed up more than 176 degrees, and when your Cruze has, like I said, at least 60, 70,000 miles or more. And then after you replace it, it'll be quiet. On the other hand, after the evap purge solenoid has been bad for a while, it can cause a check engine light with an evap code. It can even give you a knock sensor code. Sometimes an evap purge solenoid could even give you an oxygen sensor code. So, yeah, I really hope that if anybody out there thinks they have a bad timing chain, or a mechanic has told you there's a bad timing chain, or a stretch timing chain on a Chevy Cruze or Sonic or Chevy Trax, Buick Encore, I really hope some people out there see this video first before wasting $1,000 or getting rid of their car. Because there are some things you should check first. 99% of the time it's going to be an evap purge solenoid or this little plastic guide on the timing chain inside the valve cover. And those are very, very easy to fix. Very, very inexpensive. Just cost a few dollars to fix them. So I hope if anybody out there has an underboost code, they look at this too and they're like, oh wow, let me check my catalytic converter first. Let me check my wastegate actuator first before I spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a whole new turbo. So I really hope this helps some people out there.